advocacy for women's political representation. A new study shows that many Nigerian children still don't imagine women as political leaders. The research, co-authored by Nigerian and American scholars, reveals how early gender stereotypes are shaped in schools, homes and communities, and how these perceptions could limit women's future political participation. To unpack some of these findings and understand how political socialization in childhood shapes views on leadership and gender, we're now joined by Dr. Adebusola Okedele, who's a principal lecturer and dean at Sikiru, Adetona College of Education, Science and Technology in Nigeria. Now, she's a gender studies scholar with a keen interest in women's participation in politics, as well as being a co-author of the recent study. Thank you so much indeed for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
Dr. Okedele, tell us briefly about the motivation behind the study. What were you and your colleagues hoping to uncover?
All right, thank you. Looking at the political landscape in Nigeria, what we actually started off with was thinking that so many, there are just a few women on the political landscape. And we felt beyond having just a handful of women as political leaders, do we think this would have an effect on what children think? So we decided that, okay, we could, carry out a study to find out what children think about political leaders. When they imagine political leaders, what comes to their mind? Is it men? Is it men? Is it women? What comes to their mind? Then apart from that, a similar study had been carried out in the US. So we felt, let's try to replicate this study in the Nigerian context and find out if we're going to have similar results or a different result. So that was actually what motivated us to carry out this study.
So what stood out for you the most in the responses from Nigerian children when they were asked to imagine or draw political leaders?
Yeah, most of the children drew men as political leaders. In fact, our survey was conducted on over 900 children, boys and girls, between ages 9 and 16. And we found out that 98% of the boys drew a man political leader, while 92% of the girls drew a woman political leader. So in all, only about, say, 5% of the students, of the children drew a woman political leader. So in essence, we had a majority of the children drawing men as political leaders.
So this study suggests that children as young as 5 associate leadership with men. What could be the early influences driving this perception in their minds?
Yeah, it's actually based on the things they say around them, what we call the ways that they get socialized. If you look at, like I said earlier, if you look at the political landscape in Nigeria, or maybe let me just go back a little. What we actually told them to do was, we told them to imagine a political leader, what the political leader does on a typical day. And what the children had to use their own imagination, and majority of them came up, drawing a male political leader. So it's a pointer to the fact that to the way they are socialized, the kind of things they see, the kind of things they hear their parents discuss, the kind of things they hear on TV and all that. And one thing is that was actually our study was carried out just around February, when Nigeria was between January and February in 2023, when Nigeria was preparing for the general elections. And at that moment, a lot of political activities were at stop there and all of that. So the things they were seeing around them tilted more towards male political leaders, and that to a large extent informed what they had in mind about what a typical political leader would look like.
So I wonder, how do schools, textbooks and the media in general in Nigeria contribute perhaps to reinforcing these gendered ideas about leadership?
Yeah, if you take, after that our study, we also thought about this. And we went back to some of the schools to get some of the textbooks that they use, in schools and all that. And we still found out that, in those textbooks, when they talk about nationalist leaders, when they talk about political leaders, you find out that most of the images in these textbooks are actually images of male or men. And then when they talk about people in business, people, taking care of the family, most of the time, what you see is pictures of, women. So, to a large extent, the things that these kids are taught in school, of course, I'm not saying that they are not taught about, women political leaders or women nationalist leaders and all that, women or heroines and all of that. But to a large extent, when political leaders are depicted in books, they always are often depicted as male, the male figures as men and all of that. So it kind of, gets stuck in the minds of these young children.
Did you find any regional, religious, or even socio-economic differences in the way that children perceive male and female leaders?
Well, we did not. Our study did not really, look into that. Our study did not really look into that. So I won't say that we found anything, because that will be, untrue, because we do not have data for that.
Do you think parents, teachers even, are aware of the impact of their own language and behavior in shaping some of these biases?
I don't think they are. Even parents are not. I don't think they are aware, because, at times, like I said, we had our study was carried out when Nigeria was preparing for, elections and all that. And, that would have been a time that parents would be discussing a lot of politics, in the home, and children with all of this. So parents and even teachers do not seem, to realize the impact that their discussions or their attitudes about politics have on these children.
So, what do you think needs to happen then? Do we retrain teachers, educators? Do we conscientize policymakers maybe to promote more inclusive ideas of leadership from an early age?
Yes, it's important to do that. When we talk about trying to increase women's participation in politics, most of the time we focus on let's increase quotas for women and all that. There's also a need, to sensitize even to the local and even to the lowest of levels. Every hand has to be on deck, in schools, policymakers, people that design the curriculum, teachers, even parents. There has to be a wide, sensitization on these issues, so that people understand that leadership is not just something that is for men. So that even in religious spaces, in schools, when curriculum, books are going to be designed and all of that, all these things, are put into consideration, such that indirectly people do not, begin to project ideas or thoughts or opinions that will be counterproductive to having more women, occupy political leadership positions.
Is there a role for current female leaders in changing perceptions? And I'm asking this because when they do step up, it's not always very easy. There's this story, of course, of Senator Natasha Akpoti Uduaghan, who raised the issue of sexual harassment, and it became a story of persecution in the end. And it seems as if when women do want to stand up, it's very difficult and they face obstacles, and this probably puts other women off. And yet it's women in leadership that perhaps can set an example. Can you see the challenge? And I just wonder what can be done.
Yeah, there's actually a challenge. It's actually a challenge. And aside this study, I actually did a personal study that focused on women legislators, sometime last year. And this was one of the challenges, identified. So it's actually a challenge. But despite that, there's this saying, when there's the will, there's the way. Despite the challenge, if you look at, say, 50 years ago, even though we still say that we do not have so many women, in politics and all of that now, 50 years ago, the situation was, worse, but things are getting better. So I would say that despite the challenges, women politicians, women leaders should not relent. They should not, give up. They should try everything they can to sail through those challenges and know that they are doing that not just for themselves, but for generations coming behind.
All right, and perhaps finally, is there anything that gives you hope? Any signs that things can change and change is possible?
Yeah, I know change. It's possible that things will change. Things will definitely get better. Like I said, like a century ago, if you talk about women's rights, women in political leadership, things were not the way they are now. So just let's give it time with, every hand's being on deck, the right policies in place, everyone playing their roles. With time, it might take time, but someday, somehow, things will get better for women in political spaces.
Dr. Adebusola Okedele, thank you so much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us on this fascinating study. And let's hope that we are more conscious as a collective in changing some of these perceptions. Thank you so much indeed for your time.
Thank you too. Thank you.
Thank you. That was Dr. Adebusola Okedele, who's the principal lecturer and dean at Sikiru, Adetona College of Education, Science and Technology in Nigeria.
Africa, voici Abedi.